My girlfriend called my terminally ill sister a waste of time. So my cousin pulled out his wallet, slammed $5,000 on the table, and said, "You can leave right now." Her reaction was priceless. My name is Darren Mitchell. I'm 34, living in Chicago, and up until recently, I thought my life was heading in the right direction. I had a solid job as a logistics manager, a decent apartment, and a girlfriend I figured I'd marry someday. Riley and I had been together for 3 years, and on paper, we were a great match. She was sharp, ambitious, and independent, the kind of woman who turned heads when she walked into a room. She worked in corporate real estate, which meant she was always busy, always hustling. That drive was one of the things I loved about her. But it also meant she didn't have much patience for things she considered a waste of time, which apparently included my sister. Camille was 2 years younger than me, and she'd been my best friend since the day she was born. We grew up in Naperville, a quiet suburb outside Chicago, where we spent our childhood riding bikes, sneaking out to the corner store for candy, and making ridiculous games that only we understood. She was the type of person who made life feel lighter. Even when she was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, she never lost that spark. She still cracked jokes, still made sarcastic comments about how she was going to outlive all of us just to be annoying. But the truth was the disease was aggressive. The doctors gave her months, maybe a year. She moved back in with our parents so they could take care of her. I visited her every weekend without fail, because she was my sister, because she mattered. Riley never came with me. At first, I didn't think much of it. She was busy with work, and honestly, I wasn't expecting her to drop everything for my family. But as time went on, I started to notice things. She never asked how Camille was doing. She never comforted me when I was struggling. And if I ever talked about how hard it was, she'd sigh, like she couldn't wait for me to change the subject. I should have known then. I should have seen it. But love makes you blind to things you don't want to see. And then came that night. The night everything became crystal clear. Travis, my cousin, invited us over for dinner at his apartment in downtown Chicago. It was supposed to be a casual get-together, just burgers, beer, and catching up. Travis was one of the few people who truly got what I was going through. He and Camille had been close growing up, and he visited her almost as often as I did. When Riley and I arrived, Mia, Travis's fiancée, greeted us with a warm smile. She was the kind of person who made you feel welcome the second you walked in. She hugged me tightly, then gave Riley a polite but noticeably cooler greeting. I chalked it up to stress. Mia had never outright disliked Riley, but I could tell she wasn't her biggest fan. She never said anything, but I could see it in the way she looked at me sometimes, like she wanted to say something but held back. We sat down to eat, and for a while, things were normal. Travis told a story about a guy at his work who got caught sleeping in his car during lunch breaks. Mia teased him about his terrible cooking skills. Riley scrolled through her phone under the table, only half listening. Then, somewhere between bites of my burger, Travis turned to Riley and said, "So, when are you finally going to come with Darren to see Camille?" Riley let out a soft laugh, one of those amused little scoffs. She didn't even look up from her plate. "I mean, I don't really see the point." Silence. I blinked. "What?" She shrugged, still focused on her food. "It's just she's dying. It's not like visiting her is going to change anything." Mia sucked in a breath. Travis's expression darkened. I felt my entire body go cold. "You think it's a waste of time?" I asked, my voice quiet but firm. Riley sighed, finally looking at me. "I didn't say that." "Yes, you did." She rolled her eyes. "I'm just being realistic. You waste every weekend sitting in that house when you could be doing literally anything else. She's going to die whether you're there or not." Mia gasped. Travis muttered, "What the freak?" under his breath. I just stared at Riley, hoping, praying, that I'd misheard her. Maybe she didn't mean it the way it sounded. But the look on her face, impatient, almost bored, told me otherwise. The next words out of my mouth felt foreign, like they weren't even mine. "That's my sister." She groaned. "Oh my God, Darren, I'm not saying she doesn't matter. I'm just saying that spending every weekend watching her get sicker isn't healthy for you. And honestly," she leaned back, crossing her arms, "it's exhausting hearing you mope about it all the time." Travis inhaled sharply through his nose, shaking his head like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Then, without a word, he reached into his wallet, pulled out a thick stack of cash, and slammed it on the table. Riley flinched. "What the hell?" Travis leaned forward, his voice ice cold. "That's her exit fee." Her face twisted in confusion. "Excuse me?" "You can leave," he said calmly. "Right now. Take the money. Get out of Darren's life. Because if you think for 1 second that a person like you deserves to be in this family, you're dead wrong." Riley turned to me, eyes wide. "You just gonna let him talk to me like that?" I swallowed hard. He's right. Her mouth opened and closed, like she wanted to argue, but she must have seen something in my face, something final. She let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. "Wow, unbelievable." Then, grabbing her purse, she stood up, scoffing as she stormed toward the door. No one stopped her. The door slammed behind her, and just like that, 3 years of my life were over. I sat there for a long time, staring at the empty seat where she'd been, my hands clenched into fists, nails digging into my palms. I should have felt sad, heartbroken, but all I felt was relief. Mia reached over and squeezed my hand. I'm so sorry, Darren. Travis sighed, shaking his head. Man, I should have done that a long time ago. I let out a breath, slow and steady. And for the first time in a long time, I knew I had done the right thing. But the story wasn't over yet. Not even close. Travis leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples like he was trying to wrap his head around what had just happened. Mia was still staring at the door, her lips slightly parted, like she was expecting Riley to come back in and say she was just kidding. She wasn't. The room felt heavier now, thick with the weight of everything that had been said. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant noise of traffic outside. I exhaled slowly, running a hand down my face. Well, that was something. Travis snorted. Something? That was a damn circus. Mia turned to me, her expression soft. Are you okay? I thought about it. Was I? I had just watched my girlfriend, the woman I'd spent 3 years of my life with, walk out of the door, probably for good. I should have felt something. Anger, regret, sadness. But all I felt was an overwhelming sense of clarity. Like a weight had been lifted. I think so, I said finally. Travis let out a dry laugh. Man, I should have done that a long time ago. I knew she was bad news. Mia shot him a warning look. Travis. What? He gestured at the stack of cash still sitting on the table. You heard her. She had no problem saying that crap in front of all of us. Imagine what she's been saying when it's just them. I didn't say anything, because the truth was, I had imagined it. And now that I was sitting here, replaying the last 3 years in my head, I realized just how many red flags I had ignored. Riley had never been cruel, not outright, but she had always been dismissive. Anytime I was upset about something, she'd find a way to minimize it. If I was stressed about work, she'd say, just tell your boss to shove it. What's the big deal? If I was struggling with family stuff, she'd say, ugh, family drama is so exhausting, just ignore it. And when Camille got sick, well, she just acted like it was an inconvenience. Mia reached for my hand again. Darren, I know this isn't easy, no, I said, shaking my head. It is. Travis smirked. Damn, right it is. Mia sighed, but didn't argue. She knew Travis had a way of being blunt, but he wasn't wrong. I glanced at the cash on the table. By the way, you didn't actually think she was going to take that, did you? Travis shrugged. Honestly, I half hoped she would. Would have made things a lot easier. That made me laugh, and I hadn't realized how badly I needed to. The tension in the room seemed to ease after that. The three of us sat there for a little while longer, finishing our drinks, processing everything. Eventually, I checked my phone. A few missed calls from Riley. A couple of texts. Riley, are you serious right now? Riley, we need to talk. Call me. Riley, you're really going to throw everything away over this? I stared at the screen, feeling nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a strange sense of peace. I locked my phone and slipped it back into my pocket. Ready to go? Mia asked gently. I nodded. Yeah, let's go. Travis grabbed the money off the table and shoved it back into his wallet. Guess I'll be putting this back into the Darren Makes Bad Life Choices fund. Mia rolled her eyes. You are unbelievable. I laughed. Nah, he's right. That was a bad life choice. Travis clapped a hand on my shoulder as we headed for the door. Well, at least you finally made the right one. I had, and I wasn't looking back. The drive home was quiet. I had offered to take an Uber, but Travis insisted on dropping me off. He probably didn't want me sitting alone in the back of a car, thinking too much. Mia sat in the front, scrolling through her phone while Travis drove, humming to whatever was playing on the radio. Every now and then, he'd glance at me through the rearview mirror, like he was checking to make sure I hadn't completely crumbled. I hadn't. I was just exhausted. Physically, emotionally, mentally. I leaned my head back against the seat and closed my eyes, letting the quiet hum of the car settle over me. When we pulled up to my apartment, I finally spoke. Thanks for dinner. Mia turned around in her seat, giving me a small smile. Of course. Travis smirked. Anytime, man. And hey, next time you want to bring home a walking red flag, let me know ahead of time so I can save us all the trouble. I chuckled. I'll keep that in mind. Mia rolled her eyes. Ignore him. Just get some rest, okay? I nodded. Yeah, I will. I got out of the car and headed inside, the night air cool against my skin. My apartment was dark when I walked in. I kicked off my shoes, tossed my keys on the counter, and let out a long breath. I should have gone straight to bed, but instead I pulled out my phone. I hesitated for only a second before tapping on Riley's number and hitting block. Then, without another thought, I turned off my phone, set it on the nightstand, and climbed into bed. For the first time in a long time, I fell asleep easily. I had no idea what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid to find out. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in years. It was strange not having Riley's presence in my life anymore. But instead of sadness, all I felt was relief. Still, there was unfinished business. I went through my morning routine in a daze, brushing my teeth, making coffee, trying to process the fact that I was single for the first time in 3 years. But even as I sipped my coffee, staring out my kitchen window at the street below, I knew this wasn't over. Riley wasn't the type to just walk away quietly. And sure enough, my work email had a message from her. Subject, we need to talk. Riley, Darren, I can't believe you're doing this. I think we both said things we didn't mean last night, and I don't want to throw away everything we've built over one stupid argument. Can we please be adults about this and talk? I'm free tonight. Let's meet. I stared at the email for a long moment. It was classic Riley. No apology, no acknowledgement that she had crossed a line. Just an expectation that I'd come crawling back, that I'd smooth things over like I always did. Not this time. I deleted the email without replying. And then I smiled. Over the next few days, Riley didn't let up. She tried calling from unknown numbers. She messaged mutual friends, spinning the story in her favor, saying I was overreacting, that I had misunderstood her. I ignored all of it. Then, one afternoon, I got a text from Travis. Travis, so Riley just showed up at my office. What the hell, man? I nearly spit out my drink. Me, you're joking. Travis, wish I was. She came in like she owns the place, demanding to know if I brainwashed you. Security had to walk her out. I rubbed my temples, exhaling slowly. Of course she had. Riley wasn't used to losing. I had to put an end to this. And I knew exactly how. The next weekend, I went to visit Camille like always. She was sitting on the back porch in a blanket, sipping tea, her hair thinner than before, but her spirit still strong. Hey, stranger, she said, giving me a tired smile. No Riley today? I sighed, settling into the chair next to her. No Riley ever again. She raised an eyebrow. Finally came to your senses, huh? I chuckled. Yeah, took me long enough. She nodded, then looked out at the yard. You know, you should do something. I frowned. What do you mean? Camille smirked. I mean, that woman is used to getting what she wants. You need to make it clear that she lost. I tilted my head. I was just planning on ignoring her until she gave up. She scoffed. Please, where's the fun in that? You need to hit her where it hurts. I raised an eyebrow. And where's that? She sipped her tea. Her ego. And that's when the idea hit me. Riley had always prided herself on being respected in her industry. Corporate real estate was all about networking, about reputation. She had spent years crafting an image of herself as polished, professional, untouchable. Time to crack that image. I knew she was hosting an exclusive networking event that Friday, something she had been bragging about for weeks. A room full of industry bigwigs, potential investors, colleagues. The perfect audience. So I made a few calls. First, to a mutual acquaintance who worked in event management. Second, to one of Riley's biggest competitors. And finally, to someone who had been waiting for an opportunity like this, her old assistant, Carla. Carla had worked under Riley for 2 years before quitting abruptly. I had never known why, but when I reached out, she was more than happy to fill me in. She's a nightmare, Carla told me. She treated me like dirt, took credit for my work, and acted like she was untouchable. I left because I couldn't stand another second of it. Want to get some payback? I asked. There was a pause. Then she laughed. Oh, absolutely. Friday night arrived. The event was held at a high-end hotel downtown, all sleek decor and overpriced cocktails. Riley was in her element, dressed to impress, holding court among a group of investors. And then, the dominoes started to fall. First, Carla showed up, casually dropping hints about how Riley had driven multiple employees to quit, loud enough for the right people to overhear. Then, my contact at the event management company accidentally announced that Riley's biggest competitor was considering a major deal, one that Riley hadn't been invited to. The room buzzed with speculation. And finally, I made my entrance. I wasn't there to cause a scene, just to be seen. I walked in, exchanged pleasantries with people I barely knew, and made sure Riley saw me. The moment she did, her face paled. She stormed over. What the hell are you doing here? She hissed. I gave her a slow, amused smile. Just networking. Her jaw clenched. You don't belong here. Neither do you, I said smoothly. Then, I gestured around the room. People are talking, Riley. Might want to go do some damage control. She glanced around, her expression flickering with panic. She could hear the whispers. She could see the side glances. The perfect image she had built so carefully was cracking. She turned back to me, eyes blazing. You did this. I tilted my head. Did what? She opened her mouth, then closed it, realizing she couldn't say anything without making things worse. Instead, she spun on her heel and marched away, trying to salvage what she could. I didn't stick around to see the fallout. I made my point, and it felt damn good. By the time I got home, my phone was flooded with messages. From Travis, dude, that was legendary. From Carla, best night of my life. Drink on me next time. From Riley? Nothing. She had finally gotten the message. I sat on my couch, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Closure. Camille had been right. Riley needed to be shown, not told, that she had lost. And now she has. I leaned back, exhaling deeply. The chapter was finally closed. And for the first time in years, I was free.